I like it how my head ends when we get to the top row of C. Hello everyone, my name is FlareBlitzed and welcome to another tier listing video. Really original idea, but I don't care because we're getting to the end of the year and I want to do something special for it. So I'm going to be ranking every single visual novel that I've played on the channel, excluding ones which don't have at the moment a source in which to credit for. So I may have played a visual novel in the past, but I'm unable to credit them in any ways because their sites are no longer available to view. So that's the only exception, and we can have two different tier listings. Number one, full games which have been released fully and I've played at least one playthrough of. And number two, a tier listing of demos, which I would say have a slightly shorter expectations in comparison to full games because they're demos. And I think you who is watching right now can see that, and that is fair. And also, ranking over 50 different visual novels on this one tier list might be a little bit, a bit of a squeeze if you get what I mean. So we're going to kick this off with a visual novel I played in, I believe it was early November, late October, around Halloween. And Bewitched Tarts I would put in the B category. It's a very short visual novel, but it's very cute, with cute themes, with dark themes going on at the same time. Like, we have our character just being eviscerated from existence, not physically but mentally out of existence by a curse that's within a book, and the remaining two characters have to try and find a way to be able to wake her up. And I just really was lashed onto this game. Okay, coming up next is another B tier game. By the way, these are all in alphabetical order, so if there's a game in which you think should be on here, then please let me know and I'll put it down in the comment sections below with a bit of a reason. Chemically Bonded, I've played through once. I should play through the other route as well, and I believe there's like a secret route as well with a girl that's in purple. But I really like Chemically Bonded. Both of these are written by the same person, by the way. But I really like the story of this game. The characters as well are quite easy to, not easy to understand, but easy to like. So we've got the main character, and then we've got the girl in the science club, and then the other girl who is a bit snarky and sarcastic with the main character at the start, while she literally throttles him. But yeah, I really like Chemically Bonded. But by the way as well, guys, there's no such thing as a bad visual novel in this tier list because they're all likable for their own reasons. Even visual novels are put in the category of D are still very good. But it's just, in my own personal ranking, they just don't, sorry, that sounds really bad there. They aren't quite as likable in my perspective. And by the way, if it's just one person's perspective, if there's something which you think should be higher, then just put down in the comments below and why. So Dear Deviri at rank C, I think this is a very unique visual novel in its own way, where I forgot what kind of typography or something like that when it comes to play, and when we play through the game we get these mysterious letters from this mysterious individual who at first we thought had mysterious powers, but ended up finding that this is just some ordinary guy who's just somehow really, really good at guessing. Okay, next we have Devil's Door, another C-ranked game. I thought this is another very good Spooktober 2020 entry with its own different quirks and stuff like that. It's a bit short, but I kind of like that. But also, I didn't give for all of the endings because I thought that it was just a game which has requirements which are too specific to be able to get to all of the endings. Next up, we have Eisen's Apocalypse. I thought this was quite a good game. The emotions don't really portray the actual emotions of the characters when you play through the game. They sort of seem very, very still and static when it comes to the emotions in which the characters portray in the game. But I thought the plotline was quite good, you know, trying to save this town from this Cthulhu-like being. And then it ends up being that there is a being of light and a being of darkness, which were once upon a time married. And then somehow they have to try and find this resolution. And I'm sorry about this up here. I don't know how to fix that. I've tried as much as I can, but if I try and fix that anymore, then I'm going to become even more saturated. So Eisen's Apocalypse at D. I made a big playlist for that one as well. Okay. Fatal 12. I thoroughly enjoyed this game and the plot itself and the fact that your life is always on the balance. You're given a second chance at life by this goddess kind of being, which turns out to be 13 o'clock. So you could essentially choose the judge of this court arena. It's been a few years since I've last played a game, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing the game itself. I think it is an absolute blast to play along. And all the characters in their own ways are likable. Like, I think even the worst character is still really likable. And the worst character, I mean, just... I think it was that guy in the suit who was like a mafia kind of guy. He was alongside the pirate girl who was really muscular. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time throughout this game, and the protagonist turned from... I believe they kind of turned from a little bit of a wimp to somehow being incredibly strong-willed and going up against the judge, alongside her friend as well. Okay, next up we've got I'm Oh So Busy at B. The main point for me, in which I really love about this game, is the amount of expressions in which the character portrayed. Only one character had like a portrait art, but this one character, Yoshimi, I believe she's called, she had so many expressions and so much portrayal of like her character, which I really love. I really wish that more visual novels would adapt that kind of idea where there's so many different expressions drawn for that character, and that it really helps express them as a person alongside their story. And also this game is quite dark in its own ways. Like, it deals with the idea of being an adult for your first time, moving away, and then get to realize that, you know, things aren't quite as happy and jovial as you once thought. You know, being out of the confines of your parents, if you believe that that is the sort of thing that is to come, and just living life to the fullest. But you find out that at some point that being an adult is not as easy as you think. Like, when you're a child, you think everything's provided to you, so therefore you don't really need to do a whole lot, but you realize you're that kind of person who puts the infrastructure over your own life now. But I really like I'm Oh So Busy. It's quite a short game, but a very nice game. It doesn't matter how short it is, but it's how much you compact into that time length. Okay, we've got Loveesquire at A. This is a visual novel / dating sim. I thoroughly enjoyed the comedy within this game. I think all of the characters in their own ways, especially Hugh, are just so outstandingly hilarious, which I think really brings out the flair, no pun intended, of the game itself. All of the characters in their own ways are really, really likable. Like, when I was going through the game itself, you had a lot of different choices throughout the game. You can choose to either pursue one person, pursue multiple people, but then you'll get consequences if you try and pursue another person. Like, I remembered trying to pursue Princess Beatrice and then seeing somebody else, and then she was like, what? Why are you doing this? And you get negative points from doing that. Points as in the progression for that character. And then you have to work extra hard. So next game is Liney, I believe it's called. It's another quite good game. I don't really get emotionally attached to it like other visual novels, but I think as a game in itself, it is quite good. It's a story, I believe, about... I'm trying to remember now. It has some jealousy involved in it, and some plot lines as well, which can be questionable in its own way when it comes to the main character and going through the game in itself, but I really liked it. So, next up we have Missing Time. I might be a little bit biased on this one, but I thoroughly enjoyed going through this game, and it's a game as well which made me cry the most, I'm not gonna lie, seeing through all of the different episodic adventures which these characters have, like with Shaharu, Emery, Ember, Shizeo, and some of the new minor characters which are introduced in the time goes on scenario, although that area I think should have a little bit more of an explanation behind the characters, because it feels like that the drama club leader, not Samari but the other character, She had very little to no time on the screen itself, even though there have been more characters in the game which have been spoken about more, but they don't get their own portrait, sort of a way, like Shaharo's mum, for example. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it gave me a lot of emotional roller coasters when playing through the game, especially with Shizeo. I don't know why, but she is just like the funniest character, but yet is also the most intertwined in the story alongside Emery. And then next we have our Lucky Escape. I feel on paper this could have been a B or C tier game for me, but when going through the game itself, I haven't played through the new DLC yet, but it didn't strike to me as this really awesome game in which it was portrayed. It was just the first game I actually kickstarted for. When it comes to all of the different games I've kickstarted for, like Missing Time, Student Union, which is coming up later, stuff like that. Like, this is a game which I thought quite highly of, and then when playing it, kind of didn't meet their expectations, but it was still a really good game with a few funny moments in the game itself which can be very captivating. But for me, it didn't really hold up quite as high as other games did. Okay, so Refraction is next. Another quite good game in its own way. It's really interesting to see how different perceptions can work. Like, for one day, you might have a tuft of hair which is red, but the next day you have a tuft of hair which is blue, according to your friends. But you maintain that you've always had red hair. But no, each day you keep switching between red and blue hair. But also, in a way, it kind of shows how different perceptions work. Like, you have one slightly feistier person, and then you have another slightly hesitant-ish person, when they're both literally the same person, but different circumstances can lead to different personalities being built, even though they're the same person. Next up, we have Sound is Toxic. This was one of the first ones I've ever played, and this definitely has its charms. Like, the sound-based things in the game, which are really nice. Like how sound in itself can be a very, very toxic thing in comparison to other kind of elements which could be toxic. And the way that sound is implemented in this game, which if you put the little dial too high, you end up causing catastrophic events to yourself, and then ended up having, I forgot what kind of symptoms, ear-related symptoms that you get from playing the game. Not you as a player, but the main character. Like, it was, oh gosh, I really am fading now. the sun is starting to draw in. I'm sorry about that, folks. But I really like this game, and I think you should give it a go. Like all of these visual novels, you should give them all a go. Or at least for paid ones, what you should do first is watch someone else play it, and then if you like it, then consider buying it for yourself. Like, don't just watch someone else play it, especially if it's a paid game. Like, yeah, watch it, but don't always just watch someone else play it just simply because it has a price tag on it. Please support the developers whenever you can. So, next up is another short game, but it is an absolute gem, Starlight Shores. Now, what I really love about Starlight Shores is how the characters are presented to the player. Like, you've got all these different characters. You've got, I think it's about 5 characters in total. Yeah, you've got Erica, you've got Theo, you've got Lena, I've forgotten Erica's boyfriend's name, and then you got Will, which is the main character. Like, you got these 5 characters, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. And I think their strengths and weaknesses are presented in a way which is so relatable, and you can apply empathy to, which really, really brings out these characters. Like, I loved the setting of the story itself, considering how the world is right now. We could all do with some holiday time on a summer beach, in a cottage, sort of thing. But I really loved it, and I've also heard that there's DLC on the way for it as well, which add a little bit more spice to it. Not like there wasn't any spice to it to begin with. Okay, next up we have another S-tier game, and if you do not believe it's an S-tier game, then you probably have not played it yourselves. This is Steins Gate, and you can also put in Steins Gate 0 in it as well. What can I say about Steins Gate that has not been said already by other people? It is deeply, deeply built It has so many layers to it. It's so complicated that you can say, if it's too complicated for you, and then you would put it like, say, a D tier, then I could perfectly understand that. But I think because of the amount of layers to this game, it just makes it so good. You have so many different characters. You have so many different endings you could pursue. But all those endings are accessible just simply because you may not have clicked on something on time or interacted with it in time. Like, I think in Steins Gate, where if you don't pull up your phone at some points, you will just get an ending, and it's tied to a specific character, which I really like Theoris, like Shizuha, Mayuri, Kurushu, Makisa Kurushu, which is a lot of people's favourite characters. My personal favourite is from Steins Gate 0, which is what some people call the lolly, but that's not the reason why I love that character, just simply because of her feisty personality. And Steins Gate 0 just adds on to that factor, and I think that the ending of Steins Gate wouldn't make sense if you put it into Steins Gate 0, because in a way we would not understand how the story would end. But then again, if the ending of Steins Gate was put onto Steins Gate 0, then we wouldn't have been able to see, like, how it ended. Like, in Steins Gate 0, ultimately, if we played Steins Gate, we would have known how it ended. But because it was put onto the first game, it kind of taken away a bit of a mystery. But it was nice to see Steins Gate 0's this alternate timeline where we were unable to save Makisa Kurushu, and we was unable to save the person that the main character loved, because you had this choice between Mayuri or Makisa Kurushu. Two different characters in which Rintaro Okabe or Horinshin Kyoma was torn between. Your childhood friend or this newfound love. Very difficult. Very difficult. But that... oh, we've got two more full games. So next up we have The Letter by Yang Yang Mobile. This is a wonderfully created visual novel. The reason why I put it here, mainly because of the quality of how the game was presented at day one. Yes, there are still a few bugs around with this game, but the overall quality of the story, with the characters having their own different kind of personalities, strengths and weaknesses, just like in Starlight Shores, is presented in a way which I really, really love. And also the horror aspects of it, although being a bit predictable, it's still lovely in its own way and gives it a unique vibe in which other visual novels haven't presented. And I think the most gruesome part of it all was when you saw Marianne's head or neck just half decapitated off. Like, oh, for goodness sakes, that still gives me chills when I think about it. I really wish I played that game with with voices on, but I didn't know how much of the game would be taken up by voices, so therefore that's when I decided to turn voices off, but ultimately I regretted doing that. Okay, last off we have a game called Tied by Numbers, which is another Spooktober visual novel entry for 2020. Another one which I really liked. I don't want to say much. I think the Awkward Sister, I've forgotten her name now, the one which had the paranormal phone because of typing in a particular... yeah, she typed in the numbers, but she didn't actually run the number. But when they came back inside, when the electricity was fixed, somehow the phone number rang to them. And it's like, what's going on? How did this come about? Like, really? You get this random number calling you, and it was somehow your number neighbour. Like, this was the premises of this game, was a game called Number Neighbour, and essentially you just type in the numbers adjacent to your own phone number as a prank. But there was this one number in which the uninvited sister got, and literally it just started from there. So that, folks, is all that I have when it comes to full games. There are full games within the demo section, but I put them in the demo section simply because I have not started playing the full game, or they are still being developed. I consider Missing Time a full game because that is a full game. and like Starlight Shores as well, that is a full game. But there's still bits being added to it as we speak. Not like being uploaded right now for time of this recording, but the developers are working on something else. Okay, so that is the full games section. So just taking right now the different tiers which these games are placed in. There are definitely games which I missed out, but unfortunately they don't have a source at this point in time to be able to credit for, so therefore they're not on this list. But also as well, you can just check out the playthroughs of these games which I have made in the channel just simply by typing the game itself, and then you'll be able to pop up the game, and therefore you have the source and where to find this game and where to find the developers of the game itself. So that's full games done and dusted. So we're going to move on to demos now, and as I said, these are slightly below average in terms of overall quality, but then again, all of these games are made with passion, with love, everything like that. Not like AAA titles where, oh my god, the sun is really starting to rise in, but there's nothing I can do about that now. Like, I try and pull the curtains back even more, but then, hold on, let me show you why it's a bad idea. There we go. The background simply starts to seep in, which is not great. Let me just try and fix this somehow. Okay, that is as good as I can get, but then again, I'm starting to jitter as well. Do it. I think that's the absolute best that I can get, but I apologise, guys. Yep, my head's... Like, that was unintentional, but that is genius at the same time. Okay, we're moving on to demos now. And as I was saying, these are slightly below average and not like their fullest expectations. So like when the full game comes out, it will most likely be bumped up a grade or two. Unless, of course, they're in the S tier and therefore you can't get any better aside, well, even more stamps into the S tier. Like sometimes you could think, is vegging between S and A or vegging between B and C. Wedging, I mean. So this first game, Angelic Waves, I think this is quite a good game in itself, and it's also cramped because there are even more visual novels to cover. Angelic Waves has got really nice characters in the game itself. I think they're quite well written out when it comes to their different personalities, stuff like that. I'm looking forward to seeing where Angelic Waves go from here. Another game which is going to come out very, very soon in early next year, Aquadine. I really loved this game. The only thing that I found a little bit annoying was turning off the staining in the background, because I'm thinking, okay, this is a voice. No, this is not voice. This is music. Is it music? But then again, I can't hear the other music in the background. But I really like the characters in this game. I feel like it has a really unique vibe with it being very aquatic and also Greek related as well, if I can remember correctly. But I definitely recommend checking out both of these games. Next up we have Balance of Power, which is one I played quite recently. I think it was before I had to take a hiatus break, or during a hiatus. I'm not quite too sure now. But it's got really nice characters. It delves into a story where these characters have supernatural powers, but they don't know how they've got these powers. But this is a school for the... It's kind of like X-Men in a way, where all these people, all these other students, they all have different powers in their... I've got to fix this, I'm sorry, but it's either I've got too much light or too much fuzz. I'm going to have to go with fuzziness of me, really. I'm sorry. But it's a school with all these different students with supernatural powers, or however you want to call it, paranormal powers. But again, that's more horror-related. And there's this one kid who was quite shy, but everyone started trying to pick on him just because he was a new kid, and stuff happens, and lightning appears, and stuff like that. But it's also a story about character growth with these powers. Like, physically, we could not have these supernatural powers, but not the consequences, but the effect of having certain things in your life can be empathized in your own different ways, not with the powers, but with what they're going through as a result of having these powers. I can't fix this green screen. I've tried it. I'm either too fuzzy or the background shows. So I'd rather be too fuzzy rather than the background showing. Okay, next up we have Bistro Days. Like Angelic Waves, which I haven't mentioned, I supported a Kickstarter as well. You can check them out in their own respective videos in the channel as well. But this is quite a short game and also quite a unique game in its own way. It's about a person who is currently going through low points in their life, and they have a sibling. They like to boast about their achievements, their life, and stuff like that. And the mother as well not being very supportive of the main character's decisions to try and be a journalist. And then the journalist finding this cafe in the town, and we get to where it is, and it's a really nice game with really pretty characters. There's also that one character which is doing their own blog and likes to be a bit boastful about their achievements, but we can have boastful characters because they're very expressive in their own ways. Okay, next up, and there is more of this game that has come out of for when I recorded this game, and that is Black Haven. Like Bistro Days, it has a really unique vibe about it, which you can't really get from other games. Like, it's a necrotic dating sim. Like, think about it. Imagine dating a zombie, imagine dating a ghoul, or just imagine dating a martial arts student. I think that's what she was. That really cool, calm, collected, but fearful martial arts student. She was my personal favourite of the game, even though she could probably be considered a little bit cold. But I really like, what's it called now? Black Haven, a necrotic dating sim. There's more to the demo as well. Well, not the demo, but more chapters have been released of the time of this, not the time of this recording, but the time of the recording when I originally played the first chapter of the game. Bloody Chronicles, it has a lot to it when it comes to its first segment, and the characters as well are quite quirky in their own different ways, and there are a lot of moments in the game which are really memeable, like with Aki, with fried chicken and all that. Made a bunch of jokes in the Discord when I was originally in there about Aki fried chicken and stuff like that, but I definitely recommend checking out this game. It was cheaper when it was originally released, of Chapter 1 and the DLC that came out with it. I think it was Secret Operations, and it was tied to a character that you could meet later on if you perform the right decisions to save her within that DLC. So it's like, I'm not sure how that would work within Chapter 2, where if you do purchase it, then this new character comes in comparison to if you don't purchase it, or you don't manage to successfully do the right requirements in order to get that character to appear in Chapter 2. So it's like we have two different versions of Chapter 2 there. So next up we have Breathless. I found this quite an interesting, invigorating game in itself, about a person who moves away because their parents are working abroad, and this character, the main character, is staying with their extended family, I believe. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's kind of like that situation where if your parents move away and you have to go somewhere else in order to school and stuff like that. But also, I think it delves into bullying a little bit. I think it did, actually, because when it came to somebody finding out about the main character's secret power, then it was kind of like, okay, not bullying, but just a level of discomfort for the main character. But I recommend Breathless as much as I recommend all of the different visual novels that you see. But also just recommend different visual novels in general. I love to play visual novels. Visual novels are really unique in their own ways because it's a game with minimal gameplay but maximized storytelling and stuff like that. Cooking Companion, I found this to be a very, very interesting game, and I do not know why people keep comparing Cooking Companions to Doki Doki Literature Club. Hold on. Speaking of Doki Doki Literature Club, I forgot to add that onto my overall list. Second thought, it would be in the full games anyway, and I would rank it at S just simply because it is a free game and it is just simply outstanding in its own different ways and very horrific and taps onto a lot of different topics like self-harm and suicide. Okay, back to Cooking Companions. I'm not sure why people compare it to Doki Doki Literature Club. I didn't get that vibe when I was going through the game. Maybe people were comparing the different visuals that appeared in the game to Doki Doki Literature Club characters, but I think they're two different in their own ways to be able to compare to one another. But I really like Cooking Companion and the different horrors that await throughout the game, either when going through down into the basement, or that red/brown-haired girl giving you that horrific jump scare at one of the endings of the game itself. Okay, next up we have Dawn Drop. I'm kind of sad that this game has stopped developing. But I really like the different characters in this game and how the game was progressing. You went to this school in the future, which you have a medical condition. Well, not a medical condition, but you suffered a really brutal injury when the main character was younger, and when going through the game, you realise that they can't play the. I forgot the sport itself that they played, but they were helping an all-girls team to be able to do this sport. And when the main character was like, there was this character, but this one girl didn't believe him, and then turns out that he was this infamous character which did this thing, did this trick and stuff like that. And I thought it was really cool, and it also delves more into like different people's perceptions and going through life as a person who is unable to do certain things because of a catastrophic event that happened in your past. But I was really sad when this game is no longer in development. The publishers you can still find, which is why it's on this list. Okay, next up we have Deathhouse. This is a corpse party inspired visual novel which takes place in a school, which has rumours about murders going on throughout the country of Japan. And it's just really creepy. I wouldn't say it's scary, but it is creepy in its own different ways. But I recommend checking out Deathhouse if you have a chance. It's only on Tumblr, if memory serves me correct. Okay, this next one is the only NSFW game that I'll probably be playing, and is inspired by Hunipop, and I find it absolutely delightful, and that is Flustruck. This probably would be more of the lines of B or C category, but I don't care. I love the characters in this game so far, especially Yuna, and one character which has yet to be put into the game at the point of the time of this recording, but the Kickstarter was an extreme success. I found the characters themselves to be hilarious and really funny, and the different conversations you can dive into amongst other things. But I really like Flustruck, which is why it's going there. But also, this list is not down to the impact it has on the visual novel community. This is just my own personal ranking, which was unlike the RPG Maker tier list, which I made in the past, which I thought that list was more tied to the impact it had and the different effects that the games have had on the community itself. Okay, next up we have Girls. You manage a cafe which have a bunch of, I was about to say tomboys, but that's something else. A bunch of oh gosh, I've lost my words now. I lost my words. Managing a cafe full of cute girls, ? And it's a very short demo, but it's not short enough where you can't get an idea as to what the game is going to present to you. And it's just really funny in its own ways, especially with Nancy doing that reveal at the very end there, which, if you couldn't work out that the game has maids who are boys but present themselves as girls, then that final CG at the very end, near the very end of the game, really hits that nail on the head. No pun intended. Right. Next up, we have Guan Moon. I find this to be a really interesting game. A little predictable as to what goes on throughout the game, but still a very nice game in its own way. Has a few different characters. I find that the characters themselves are all too similar. Like, there's no differing between one character and the other character. They all have the kind of same exoskeleton when it comes to all of them. But it doesn't mean that the game is bad or the characters are bad. But I just want some differing between the characters and their personalities and stuff like that. Like, you have one feisty girl, and then the rest of them are kind of shy. Okay, this next game is a full game, but I've only played the demo to it. And that is Heart of the Wood. A really, really nice adventure about two, not two siblings, but there's one really, really, really feisty girl, and another one who is kind of like under a contract or so to help her along with what she's doing. It's been a few years since I played the demo, and I really like the wintry themes as well. I don't know, guys. Should I play Heart of the Woods full game for Christmas? Around the Christmas period, because it is a wintry themed game? Please let me know down in the comment section below. I have Heart of the Wood alongside another snowy themed visual novel which is coming up very soon, which I've been provided a key for, which I'm truly thankful for. Okay, next up, which is another game that is going to be coming out quite soon, like Aquadine, and that is Cosmos Connections. Technically, this is a 2-in-1 game, because when you play the game, you're helping a friend of yours play a game. Like, you're beta testing for a game that one of the main characters have built inside Cosmos Connections, which I've forgotten the name of it now. It's a it's not like Cosmos Connections, but it is another kind of similarly sci-fi themed sort of feel. I say sci-fi themed because there's a star in the background there. But I really like the characters in this game. It's been a while since I last played a game. I think it was early last year that I played a game. Not quite too sure. I'm covering over 50 different visual novels, guys. So it's quite hard to remember like the different specifics of certain games, especially when they've been further in the past when I played them. But I really like Cosmos Collection for what it is. I think the graphics are amazing on it as well. With all of these games, the visuals are just brilliant. Next up, we have Lovesick Darlings. This is one of the longest demos I've played, and it is at the A category for good reasons. It only has like 7 or 8 main characters. I've forgotten all of their names. Especially that red-haired girl, which I've forgotten the name of now. But the game itself has characters which have so many different personalities about them, which really brings out their flair and colours when it comes to comparing them to the other characters in the game. Like, you can tell that when you talk about this trait, you can apply it to this character. When you talk about that trait, when you apply it to that character. But this was like a 10-part demo series of mine. I forgot, is it 10 parts or 9 parts? But it was definitely a very long series which I did, and it was just a demo in itself. Like, imagine like the full game and how many different parts I'm going to be making for that. It's exciting. It's exciting. The longer it is, the more gameplay that there is. Not gameplay, but more story there is, or more opportunity to put story in it anyways. But I really love Lovesick Darlings and the different vibes that are going on throughout the game. What I'm going to say is Nacho is a douche. Melancholy Love, one that I played recently, is D category. And the only reason why I really put it down here, because the demo doesn't really portray what is really going on throughout the game. It's kind of like an enigmatic story between one person who thinks they're the master, and then another person in which the master's eyes thinks that they're like a slave or a bunny of sorts. Like, this master thinks they're a fox, and while the other character is portrayed as a bunny, as a slave, as a prey. But I really like the aesthetics of this game, but it just didn't really gel with me that well in comparison to other games. But it's not a bad game, just personally for me, it didn't really gel with me like other games did. Since I was torn between putting this at B or C, but I put it at C, and it is a really nice, really softly coloured game as well. Like, it goes into a dark theme, I think, where you're helping out a character which has run away from a orphanage, I believe it was, but we don't know their backstory really a lot. And well, mates, what did I just say there? Really a lot. But I don't really understand them as characters, and when going through the game itself, it really is a really nice game, where the different characters have... Oh gosh, I've lost my track now. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But the aspects of this game are really, really soft, and gives you a very welcoming, cozy feeling. and I really like the game in itself. I'm not too sure why. I'm not too sure why I really like this game, but I really like this game. But yeah, all of his games I really like in their own different ways. This next game, I've been meaning to play chapters 2 and 3 to them, but I have not yet gone around to it, and that is National Park Girls. I think, like other games, like, what was it earlier? Balance of Power, and I believe one other game as well. And also Cooking Club as well. So, Cooking Companions. National Park Girls, in comparison to other visual novels, has a really unique theme going on about it, where it's talking about, like, these national parks being entities, and Yoshimite being kind of like the leader of the parks in the game. Like, you have 2 other parks as well as characters, but they're not as much of a leader as Yoshimite is, and Yoshimite having this kind of battle with one of the rangers. I've forgotten her name now, but it's a really interesting, invigorating game, which Yoshimite tried to scare off the person that stayed in the shack, and it's like, you're not going to get rid of this one that easily, you know. You're not going to get rid of her that easily just by playing some spoopy pranks and stuff like that. But I've been meaning to play more of this game, but I haven't got round to it by A, other games, and B, hiatuses I needed to take because of illnesses and stuff like that. Okay, Once More is another C category game. I particularly like this game because it is another one of those games which you can't really find another one of. I remember one of the characters I really disliked because of the way that they presented themselves to the main character, and that she thinks that the main character is some sort of stalker slash creep, which is not the case. You dropped your handbag. No, you dropped your diary. You dropped your diary in the music room, and therefore you thought that the main character stole it. But because you didn't have a chance to give the main character to explain themselves, you just think that they stole it from you, which is not the case. Different perceptions as well. Like, one perception, they think that it's a theft, but another perception is just a misunderstanding, and therefore they picked it up, and they probably would have put it to lost property as well, something like that. Next up, and the only reason why I put it at D is simply because this visual novel's demo is just far too short to be able to put together a coherent story. And that is Perfect Gold, which is also made by the same developers who have made Valletta and Loveesquire. I am pretty confident that this would be an A tier game, but because of how short it is, it doesn't really provide you with much story to go off with. You have a few different questions which you are probably left at the end of the demo, but it is an incredibly pretty game. It's also one that I kickstarted myself. Not kickstarted myself, but I supported a Kickstarter to it. And that is The Alchemy of Happiness. I really liked it, but because of how long it is, or how short it is, sorry, you don't really get much out of it. Okay, so next up we have Perseverance, in which I think is part 2 is going to be released very soon. I really like this game as well. It's also got a unique vibe where I think what's going to happen is this town in which we're staying in, it has kind of like a country feeling to this game, much like national parks, but in this one you also have a sense of urban legend sort of thing, where one day it's going to be this zombification town, and it's up to the main character, I think, to see what's going on and stuff like that. But it also deals with stuff like alcohol and not an abusive wife, but a wife that doesn't support your decisions. But it's also one of the only visual novels I played where you're playing as an older male. Usually you would play as a student or somebody within the female gender category. Right, next up, male gender category is rarer. Next up we have Reverie, also known as nowadays as Reminiscence in the Night. I believe this game is either coming out very soon or has already been released. Apologies to the developers if I got that incorrect the first time. But I really like the different perspective that is within this game, where you're literally walking around and therefore is it walking around or just interacting with a screen? I honestly am not sure now, but I really like this particular visual novel and the setting that is presented itself out in the game as well. Next up we have Selene Apoptosis. Another game which I found to be quite short, and also it's over my head, but don't worry, it's not over my head too much. So one day you're trying to sleep, even though you suffer from insomnia. This wonderful cat girl comes to your door, and now you need to look after it. But also, it also had an option again where you decided to not let it in. The game kept repeating the events of itself until you actually selected yes. Like, I find that to be a very, very nice thing. And also, by the way, just a reminder, just because games are within the C or D category does not mean they're bad games. These are all demos. These all have the potential to be like B, A, S. You know what I mean? Where was it first? It was down here at first, cool. And you can tell I'm using Photoshop for making this tier list, just by everything that's going on around you. But I really like this visual novel. But also as well, thank you to the developers who put like a live stream sort of thing on their Steam page showing the visual novel itself. Thank you very much. Right. Next up, we have Student Union, and just like the start of the name, I found this demo to be amazing. I was really misled on this visual novel because I thought it was about a 3-hour one, but instead it was a 4-hour one for me. And all the different characters, in this game are so well loved in their own different ways. For me personally, I do not like Alice's personality. She is too feisty. She is too competitive. Okay, take away feisty. She is too competitive. She is too snarky. She would much rather let you die in a ditch if it will satisfy her own individualistic conveniences. But I still like her as a character. Like, she is very well written, and because you have this really big dislike for a character's personality, just shows how well written they are. And then you have other characters in the game, like Kane. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Bria Decker fan, like the principal of the game. I'm a Bria Decker fan. I prefer Kane more than Alice. That is how much I dislike Alice. And if you've played through the demo entirety, you know what Kane did. And I'm a Decker fan. Like, put 2 and 2 together, you probably think that doesn't make sense. But I like Kane as a character because he is a person who has gone through a lot of suffering himself in his lifetime. And Lane being a bit of a prick towards Kane, and he deserves to be punched, for goodness sakes. He deserves to be beaten up. Okay, another S-tier game. I really love Student Union and everything that they have done for the visual novel community. I think it's a very good game. The Lost Delinquents of Rolling High is also an S-tier category game for me as a demo. I think it is the most energetic game I have ever come across in a visual novel setting. The amount of visual effects in this game, along with the different personalities which are presented in the game, is fantastic. And I wish more games could take the approach of putting together a really energetic vibe throughout the game. It's just a really energetic vibe with so many different character qualities. Like the first character you interact with, that girl that keeps trying to wake you up and all that sort of jazz. I really loved it. I wish there was more. I'm joking. The time of recording of Lost Delinquents of Rolling Highs when I did it, I think another demo came out where another update of the demo came out where it had voice acting in it. Okay, next up we have Tidal Blossoms, which is a game which is made by the same developer who also made Starlight Shores. This is a B tier game for me. Excuse me. And I personally really like this game and the characters in it. Like otherwise, it's a bit short, but that doesn't matter when the quality of the story itself is very presented out. It also takes place in the same universe as Starlight Shores, and I really like this game. And I also got stuck at one point because I couldn't progress through the word guessing game. If you remember that word guessing game, like, I wasn't able to tell which part of the button you need to press on in order to advance through it, because usually you would select it, like the entire button should be a selectable zone rather than just being a very specific little spot on it. I love playing games. Like, even the moments where you get a little bit frustrated, you gotta love, because it adds a new flair to it. No pun intended. Right, another S tier game, the final S tier game, and that is within Tiny Bunny. Now, what do I love about Tiny Bunny, and why is it S tier? Like Valletta, I think it is an extremely well made visual novel. Being black and white as well, it can be quite difficult to put in a colourful scene, but it is colourful while being just black and white and blood red. I think there was some blood red, or maybe, no, maybe the blood itself was just a saturated version of what it would be if it was blood red. But I like the atmosphere and the vibes which are presented from this game. It is a wonderful game with a very, very horrific scenario. It's set in Russia as well, so Siberian Russia. Like, there are fewer places in the world where you think there will be more horrific vibes coming out of it. And also, I think this game was, I played it in the summer months, I believe it was, or the spring. But I just loved the different interactions you had in the game. It's another game where, like, it's like Lost Delinquents of Rolling Highs, where you get to select your own different destinations and stuff like that, but also you are confined to the game's mechanics, so you can't just trundle off until you get to the edge of the game's programming scripts. So that's that. So next up, we've got Toric Secrets. This is up on Steam at this point in time, I believe it is. Yeah, up on Steam. Thank you to the developers for reaching out to me for being able to play this game as well. This game itself has some really nice vibes to it. It's based around, I think it's based around paranormal sort of stuff. The main character wakes up in a hospital after a injury, and that injury has caused the main character having, I was about to say insomnia, but amnesia, or something similar, where they can't remember certain past events which have happened. They can't remember the names of their friends, but alongside that, one of their friends could be in an alternate version, a very zombified, cannibalistic version of themselves. Right, next up, and this is a game which has been released on Steam fully, but I've yet to play it, which is Up Until the End. I think the thing that I remember about this game being very good is that it's a unique vibe to it as well. It's like a post-apocalyptic scenario where you're this kind of lab rat in a way, where you're trapped in a asylum, I believe it is, and the authorities kind of treat all of the prisoners in the same way, where you're not people, you're just tools for them to be able to do what it is that they need to do. But then they escape, and then it could be a romance in its own way, but I don't think romance is the main plot line of this game. It's just more the overall tone of the game is more leaned towards surviving and getting away from the authorities. Right, next up we have Veil of Kindfall Pass, if I can select it. Another D-tier game. I like the visuals of this game and where it's going towards, but it's just another game like Perfect Gold where it was just too short to be able to get much out of it. But I like the Halloween-y vibes that were going on throughout the game as well. Okay, next up we have Venus Improbable Dreams. This is, I think, the only demo which I haven't completed, simply because the amount of time it says to take to complete the demo itself didn't portray on like how long it took for me to be able to play the game itself. So I kind of crashed there, where gosh, I've lost my train of thought now. The story was kind of overlapping, where it was just hitting the same lines, but the lines themselves are incredibly effective, where it's a bit of a risky topic to talk about when it comes to different medical or visual things that you're going through throughout your life. Like, the main character has, I think it's a mole on their right cheek or something like that, but it's noticeable where the main character feels that they are a person who is going to be judged by everyone around him simply because of something on them. And over time, he's kind of self-ingrained that thought that everyone would just ignore him because of that feature on him. He becomes so nervous that he doesn't speak with anyone else, really. Not even his own parents. Like, he just wants to get to his room as fast as possible when he gets home. But also, one day, the teacher in the room decided that it would be a good idea for this character to join the musical club. And I find that that is a very good way, because in music, what you put into it is your own emotions. And I think that music cannot be played without emotion. And one day, the main character stumbled out of the class just to see where a particular noise was coming from. And a girl was practicing the piano, I believe it was. No, not piano. That's the main character who is in which they're practicing on, not the main character. Forgotten the instrument they played, the flute, I believe it was. And then the main character discovered that this character was blind. So I think in a way, to the main character, that was a bit less intimidating, because this character can't see what the MC looks like, and therefore, in a way, to the MC, that is kind of comforting. But the scenario itself obviously is not comforting because the other character is blind. Anyways, I think I've probably talked about Venus Improbable Dream the most amount in comparison to all the other different visual novels I've covered. Okay, so the last one I'm going to include on this list, and I think this is still in development, is Zodiac Axis, which is also in the D category. Really likable characters, but I'm really not too sure about this one. Like, it was a really nice game as it is, but I don't think that the story itself is really well presented in comparison to other visual novels. But I'm going to leave it there, folks. That is about 51/52 different games. With Doki Doki Literature Club, which I forgot to put on here, you're probably thinking, Flare, how could you not put Doki Doki Literature Club on here? That's like one of the most influential, not influential, but one of the most iconic visual novels out there. It was just simply because I forgot to put it up there. And it would be S tier alongside Fatal 12, Missing Time, and Steins Gate. But that is going to wrap up this tier... Excuse me. That's going to wrap up this tier list, folks. Thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully you all have your own different opinions about these different visual novels if you've played them for yourselves. And we shall see each other's in the next video, wherever it may be. Oh, also, I forgot one other game which I've recently played, which I forgot to put on here, which is Project Kawasaki. I would put that on a B tier because of the RPG-like elements into a visual novel where you have different stats, kind of like Honeypop and Loveesquire, where you build up different stats in order to get to certain parts of the game. Like you had charisma, determination, courage, kindness, and... oh, I've forgotten that other stat. But I would also put that in a B category alongside Toric, Secrets, Venus Improbable Dreams, Tidal Blossoms, National Park, Cosmos, Connections, Girls, 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 Aquadine, Bistro Days, and Black Haven. Thank you all so much for watching, everyone, and see you all in the next video. Have a lovely day and take care of yourselves.